Hey everyone. On today's episode of Terrariums 101, we're going to be talking about how to clean your moss and prepare it for your terrariums. If you're enjoying the content and you haven't already, I'd greatly appreciate that like and subscribe. Thanks. So let's answer the most pressing question here. Why would you need to prepare or clean your moss before putting it in a terrarium? Well, one of the biggest reasons is you want to make sure you remove any hitchhikers. Now those are going to be things like slugs and centipedes, millipedes, fly larvae, fungus, anything of that nature. And another reason is going to be because it's going to remove soil, debris such as dead grass or leaves, bark, anything that may introduce excess decay into your terrarium, and decay will eventually lead to mold. Mold is a natural process of a terrarium, so it's not necessarily a bad thing if it does pop up, but we can take some steps to prevent it. And step one to treating your moss is going to be to soak it. And for your water, you're going to want to make sure that you don't use water with chlorine in it. If you do use tap water, you can use a number of different treatments to remove that chlorine. You could also use distilled water, reversed osmosis, spring water from the store is generally okay, but I would still probably hit that with something to remove chlorine just in case. And you can see that this water is already starting to turn brown pretty quickly. You'll want to leave this soak in here for about 30 minutes to an hour, and then you'll come back and check on it. And after a few minutes, we already have our first hitchhiker, a little Snell here. I will go ahead and release him back outside. I don't necessarily care for Snells in my terrariums. They will eat the plants if they have nothing else to feed on, so I just in general don't have them. But don't get me wrong, there is absolutely no problem keeping Snells in your terrariums if that's what you want to do. So now that the first rinse is finished and we already had a couple of hitchhikers come out, it is time to transfer it into another container. It's going to be the same exact process. You're going to fill it with your treated water and you're going to let it set for about an hour or so. You'll want to swish it around every now and then just to make sure you break that dirt off. And now is also a really good time to start getting the larger chunks of debris off of the moss. And here is another great example of hitchhikers that could accidentally end up in your terrarium if you don't properly prepare and treat your moss. It looks like he has a little friend too. I'm going to hang on to these guys and see if I can't manage to raise a few. So after the second soak, you move on to, that's right, you guessed it, the third soak. Realistically, you'll want to keep doing this until the water's clear. I don't always go until it's clear because, just to be realistic, you're never going to remove everything. You can definitely tell that the water is a whole lot more clear than what it was when we started out, and that's a good sign. It means we're doing our job here. So the moss is very waterlogged at this point, so we're going to remove it from the water and we're going to put it in a container with no water, and from there we'll let it dry, and we'll also start moving some of the more finer debris. And moss is a very resilient thing, so you can literally pick this up and wring it out like a wet towel. However, there are some moss species that are a little bit more fragile. Something like a fine hair moss, you wouldn't want to do this with. You could just let that dry out naturally. I'm going to continue the same process with all the pieces of moss in this container until we've completely emptied it out. So now that I have it all in here, we're going to go through with some tweezers and remove all of the finer debris that we can find. As you can see, this already looks much different from what it was in the beginning. It's already looking much more clean. I will say that removing debris from moss is a labor of love. It is rather relaxing for me to do it. I hope it's relaxing for you to watch it, but it is a very time-consuming process. That doesn't mean it always is, right? This moss in particular came from my backyard. It is probably a very bad example of how moss is when you find it in the wild. I mean, I do mow my grass, I have kids, I have animals, so there's probably more debris in here than what you generally would see in the wild. But I hope it gives you a really good idea of what the process would look like, even in your worst case scenario. And that's it for today. I hope you guys picked up some tips and tricks for cleaning your moss and that you can now go off and do this on your own. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments below and I'll do my best to reply. And if you're enjoying the content, please give me a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.